So I just want to run through a couple points here that I think will help you as you're trying to manage the classroom. So the first one is this. It's teach them the goals of the club. All right, if you start with that, it's easier to be able to discipline because they know why they're there. So, for example, I coach my son's soccer team. My son Davis, you'll meet him in a little while. He's 5, right? Coaching a 5 and under soccer team is its own kind of challenge. But, those kids were well behaved, and it's because I started out by teaching them the same thing at the start of every single time we practiced or had a game. Why are we here? What are the rules? The rules are have fun, try hard, don't give up. Beat that into their head every practice, every game, every time we're together. Listen, for a Good News Club, that's the same kind of thing we want. If we give them the goals for why they are there, managing behavior becomes a lot easier. So I would encourage you, start with teaching the goals. So for a Good News Club, I'm not mandating what those have to be for you, but the ones that make sense to me and are easy to put forward is have fun, learn about God, know Him more. Now you can tweak that, you can change that. I'm not dictating what you have to say, but we want to have fun in there, and we want them to be learning about God. And if you teach them that at the beginning of every club, it becomes much easier then to correct behavior because you can tell them why we're there, what we're trying to do, right? Second is this, use the child's name, right? Managing a classroom, a lot of it is built on your relationship with those kids. It's built on the relational investment that you're making in those kids as you get to know them and they get to know you. And man, what goes further than anything else is knowing and using their name during club. I know that's hard because you may have a lot of kids. You're only seeing them, once a week. And listen, I'm terrible with names. So I totally get it. But make sure they're wearing name tags and make sure you're using their name as you talk to them. Third is just be clear on the rules and be consistent on your enforcement. Now, this is one of the things that one of my friends who's a principal, he says is one of the main things he tries to drill into all of his new teachers. That is the one thing he wants them to remember. Be very clear on your rules and be very consistent in your enforcement of them, especially in the beginning of club, the beginning of your year. Because you can start with being consistent and a little firmer with discipline and then ease up as the year goes on. If you start easing up and then you try to get more rigid as the year goes on, it does not work. It's going to be a bad experience for everyone, but especially you, right? So be clear on the rules and consistent on enforcement. The good thing is you don't have to come up with the rules, right? Because we have the rules. We have at least the basics for you. Now, based on your classroom or your gym or wherever they've stuck you, that we're trying to get you a better spot for many of you, I know, you may need to add a few, right? But we have our 5 fun rules or 5 up rules. Now, I call them 5 fun rules. Why do I do that? Because I think it helps when we're trying to make our expectations clear to kids. Hey, we're here because we want you to have fun. But if you want to have fun, there are certain rules you have to follow. If you don't follow these rules, nobody's going to be having fun, especially not you. If you want to be able to have fun, you have to look up, listen up, zip up, you know them, right? Use those rules at the start of every single gathering. Put those rules before the kids and give that explanation. These aren't just arbitrary rules that we're having you follow because we don't want to have to listen to you go crazy. No, these are the rules you have to choose to follow so that we can all have fun together. Because if I can't hear you and you can't hear me, it's not fun. You want to be able to talk and listen and engage. These are the rules that let us have fun. That's one way you can pitch it. And then once you establish those 5 ups, those 5 fun rules, then you keep disciplining throughout club to those rules. So, one way to bring your club to a grinding halt is that every time somebody gets out of line, you've got to spend 30 seconds redirecting them and then try to get back into what you were talking about, right? A way to do it very quickly and easily is to just be able to look over and say, hey, look up and listen up, and then you're right back into it. That took me 3 seconds. Right? So when you're disciplining, use the rules and remind them. And if you've cast those rules in terms of your fun rules it's easy to get kids to understand why they need to do it, why they need to obey those. Another thing is this, Lois can tell you about this probably, and those of you who are educators can tell you about this, but when I was teaching, one of the things that was most enlightening to me was trying to use a positive behavior system, right? So you're not just trying to address problem behavior and correct the kids who are doing the wrong thing. You actually help your behavior in class to be right by noticing and affirming kids who are doing the right thing. So if Jimmy's over here listening well and you got a couple kids who are just being a terror, you look at Jimmy, you talk about Jimmy, you affirm Jimmy, right? And for many kids, that helps them to get back on the right track without noticing and giving attention to the problem behavior. So that's another thing you can try to do. And I'm just giving an overview. Again, read through this document. It'll give you more details. The seventh thing here is this. So, it's an after-school club, and those kids have been sitting in school all day. Even the best kids are going to have rough days, right? So, very clear, simple way to do classroom management is just use 3 warnings. With your good kids, with your bad kids, use 3 warnings. Tell them up front, you guys get 3 warnings. If I have to warn you the 3rd time, you're going to end up having to go into a timeout, right? But 3 warnings are clear. It's easy for kids to understand. And if you're consistent in the enforcement, those first couple of weeks may be rough, but you'll end up with a good, well-behaved class that's going to listen to you and have fun and pay attention. The 8th thing here is, so some kid, you give them 3 warnings, they're still behaving in a way that you don't want. What can you do? With your good kids or your bad kids, use short timeouts strategically. I know some of us may think, timeouts, this is a voluntary club. I don't know if I want to do that. Listen, if you start with a long timeout or that kind of a punishment, that's not going to go great. But if you use a short timeout strategically, oftentimes that corrects a child's behavior very effectively, right? So earlier this year, I'm teaching soccer. One of my best players and best kids is Lucas. Lucas, he's just having a bad day. He's not listening to anything. So I made him take a 2-minute timeout, just long enough for him to miss 1 drill. His whole behavior was changed like that. He missed 1 time. He's ready to listen. He's ready to pay attention. And he was the best behaved kid the whole rest of the practice. I didn't have to sit him out for long. He just missed 1 thing. So that's one technique you can employ. Use a short timeout, long enough for them to miss 1 activity, 1 thing where you would have called on them or had them participate. And then if a kid still isn't following the rules after that short timeout, use a long timeout. At that point, you're separating them to be able to let the other kids participate, and that kid is going to be sitting out for either the remainder of club or the remainder of that activity, right? But it's not the only thing you can do, but that's one thing, these 9 steps. If you try and employ some of those, all of those, it may help significantly with your club.